ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings in Iran, Max Robinson in Chicago, and from our desk in Washington, Frank Reynolds.
Good evening. On this, the 27th day of captivity for American hostages in Tehran, Iran's foreign minister said there is no hope for negotiations at this time, and he will not go to New York for tomorrow's session of the UN Security Council. The deposed Shah of Iran said he wants to leave New York and hopes the government of the United States will help him find a country that will take him now that Mexico has said he is no longer welcome there. Now, we go to Tehran and Peter Jennings.
It is the end of another week here, and because it was a holiday, the crowds were larger outside the American embassy. The walls and undoubtedly the hostages' ears were buffeted by an increased volume of sound. Iranians have given no sign today that an end to this crisis is in sight. At a news conference this afternoon, the new foreign minister reaffirmed this country's isolation in the world community.
According to the decision made by the Revolutionary Council, we are not attending the Security Council meeting tomorrow. And obviously, we keep our contacts with the authorities of the United Nations for further discussion and deliberation on the subject of our claims against the United States of America.
Mr. Ghazbazadeh said the decision of Mexico not to take the Shah was a welcome one.
The Mexican government had shown that they do not want a pronounced criminal to be on their country. And it shows also to what extent the American foreign policy was a mistake.
Like other politicians here, he thought an international investigation of the Shah would be a positive step. But it remains unclear whether the hostages' freedom could hang on such an investigation.
Because the question of hostages relates to another bigger and much important question, and that is the Shah himself and the crimes he had committed. As soon as that is accepted as a basis of this problem, then the problem of hostages can be dealt with accordingly.
In a remark which surprised correspondents, the foreign minister said Bruce Langan, the American charge, and two other diplomats at the foreign ministry were free to go. He qualified it, however, by saying he had heard they were prepared to stay, and further that providing security between the foreign ministry and the airport would be difficult. There is, said Mr. Ghazbazadeh, no room for negotiations at this moment. And he followed the Ayatollah's line directly when he said, what will be on trial here will be the politics of American intervention in Iranian affairs for the last 25 years.
This is Ted Koppel. For the first 2 weeks or so after the hostages were seized, Bruce Langan served a pivotal role. It was through him that the Iran working group here at the State Department communicated with Iranian government officials. But for the past 2 weeks, Langan's only contact has been with the Foreign Ministry's chief of protocol. There is no practical reason for him to stay, even out of a sense of duty. And if he and his two colleagues were free to leave, the State Department would encourage them to do so. As for the hostages, the U.S. government can't even be sure where, let alone how they are.
If the government of Iran is so certain that they are being too well treated, then let the government observe the minimal decencies and meet the minimal requirements in the handling of any kind of prisoners, common criminals, political or whatever, and let us and the rest of the world know how each and every one of those hostages are. We have no way of knowing.
Repeatedly during today's briefing, Hunting Carter was asked whether the Shah, now unable to return to Mexico, would be welcome to remain here. Repeatedly, he avoided any direct answer.
What I can't deal with is a speculative question which doesn't arise since he has announced his intention to leave. So let me repeat, the Shah has consistently said he wishes to leave the United States. I have no reason to doubt that. We are, at this point, dealing with a real situation, which is his expressed intention to leave the United States. Are you telling me you know that he wants to stay here?
No,
I'm telling you we understand that he continues, as he has said constantly, to wish to leave when his medical treatment is over.
If the Shah is waiting for an invitation from the U.S. government, it does not appear imminent. Ted Koppel, ABC News at the State Department.
The deposed Shah, of course, remains at New York Hospital. Today, his spokesman said the Shah is definitely planning to leave, but there is no word on when that will happen. There's also no word on where he will go, although Bermuda, the Bahamas, and even Austria have been mentioned as possible places, along with Egypt, where today Anwar Sadat extended yet another invitation. The confusion, or that is confusion, surrounding the Shah's next destination results from Mexico's sudden refusal to allow him back. For more on the situation, we have two reports. First in Mexico City, here's David Garcia.
The Shah is no longer welcome here, a decision made by President Lopez Portillo himself. And today, neither the president nor anyone else in the Mexican government would say anything more about it. Announcing the decision, the foreign minister said the Shah's return would not be in the interest of the Mexican people, that his visa would not be renewed. Mexico has condemned Iran for holding the hostages, labeling the situation a threat to world peace, and opinions on the streets of Mexico City support the decision.
I think that the Shah has done wrong to his country and shouldn't be allowed to any kind of a political asylum here.
That's all. I don't want him anymore in Mexico.
Certainly, I believe that there would be problems.
The decision is surprising considering Mexico's traditional policy of accepting political exiles. But by closing its embassy in Iran weeks ago and now blocking the Shah's return, Mexico is refusing to get caught in the middle. David Garcia, ABC News, Mexico City.
This is Doreen Kays. President Sadat spent this Muslim Sabbath as usual, praying and waiting for word from New York or Washington. On hearing of the Mexican decision, President Sadat promptly renewed his long-standing invitation to the Shah. Come to Egypt for treatment, convalescence, or permanent exile. He made it clear that Egypt, unlike Mexico, is not about to back down.
We are ready to receive him immediately. And we didn't receive anything officially. But before I came here, I contacted the Prime Minister, and there has been certain instructions to be sent to our ambassador to contact the American administration and the Shah himself.
If the deposed monarch decides it's Egypt, President Sadat's private 707 is fueled and ready for takeoff. Specialists at Cairo's Cancer Institute and military hospital are also ready. And a residence as well, I'm told. Maybe Qubba Palace. If the Shah prefers the winter resort of Aswan, where he spent the first few days of his exile last January, a residence awaits him there. President Sadat denies reports that the U.S. may be discouraging the Shah from coming to Egypt for fear of stirring up trouble for an already troubled and isolated Muslim leader. In fact, tight security is being enforced, especially on university campuses, where some Islamic fundamentalist groups are under close surveillance. There are still about 20 Egyptian diplomats and Foreign Service personnel in Tehran, and there are fears of attacks against them and other Egyptian diplomatic missions and offices abroad. Doreen Kays, ABC News, Cairo.
A new ABC News Lewis Harris poll shows Americans by a margin of 76 to 19% want the deposed Shah to leave the country. But by a similar margin, they think it would be wrong for us to send him back to Iran to be tried. Almost 4-to-1 Americans think President Carter has been firm and steady in his handling of the crisis. And by more than 2-to-1, the poll finds Americans in favor of stronger actions, including a naval blockade if Iran tries the hostages as spies. More on Iran in a minute.
ABC's World News Tonight, brought to you by Dristan Tablets. Maximum strength for nasal congestion, extra medicine for aches and fever.
Are you in the dark about which does more for a bad cold? Contac or Dristan tablets? Compare daily doses. Only one has 3 times more medicine for sneezing. Dristan does. The capsules don't. One has a maximum dose of medicine for congestion. Dristan does, capsules don't. And only Dristan has pain reliever for aches and fever. The capsules don't. Dristan does what capsules don't. Get more complete relief. Dristan does what capsules don't.
$300.
America's waking
Chrysler Plymouth. Chrysler's $300 offer has Americans looking at the new Chryslers and Plymouths and buying.
The $300 got me to look at it, but the Cordova sold itself.
The $300 really clinched the deal on my Volare.
Get a car, get a check, direct from Chrysler. But hurry, this offer's limited to 100,000 Chrysler Corporation buyers.
Waking up to Chrysler Plymouth.
At participating dealers.
The United Nations Security Council will go ahead with its scheduled session tomorrow night to consider the Iran crisis, despite today's announcement that the Iranians will not be there. And the World Court announced today it will not meet until December 10th to take up this country's request for an order to Iran to release the hostages. Peter?
The Ayatollah Khomeini had nothing political to say on this Muslim Day of Remembrance. He appeared before the faithful at his home in the city of Qom. Throughout the country, which is 98% Muslim, the faithful, as tradition warrants, made their grieving public. Here is ABC's Jerry King.
Normally on this most holy day of the Shia faith, these people would use broadswords to beat themselves bloody. The Ayatollah Khomeini banned that tradition this year, hence this symbolic sharing of the pain the Imam Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad, endured before his death 1,400 years ago. There is a political relevance to Iran today in this ceremony. Khomeini's followers are declaring themselves ready to follow Hussein into martyrdom, should the Ayatollah call on them to fight. The politics of Khomeini also dominated the regular Friday morning outdoor prayer meeting on the Tehran University campus. The Ayatollah Beheshti, believed to be the head of the ruling Revolutionary Council, was among the speakers urging Iranians to vote this weekend for the proposed constitution, which would give the Ayatollah Khomeini absolute power. When they got round, finally, to the prayers at this prayer meeting, the revolutionary students holding the hostages within the American Embassy compound joined in. The service was being broadcast on Tehran radio. For the rest of the day, in front of the embassy gates, it was business as usual. A few new posters appeared. There seemed to be more families in attendance, and the chanting, the ever-present chanting, pro-Khomeini, anti-Carter, and calls for the deposed Shah to be brought back for execution. Jerry King, ABC News, Tehran.
Within the next 3 days, the already overwhelming Muslim nature of this country is going to be embodied in law. From the skies today, by mechanical means, came the message to vote for the new Islamic constitution. Iranians will go to the polls on Sunday and Monday. There is little doubt that in the fervor the Ayatollah has created, the decision will overwhelmingly be yes. Bernard Shaw has an explanation of what the Islamic constitution means.
The citizens of Iran will be asked to vote yes or no on a constitution which rejects all that the deposed Shah and his regime stood for. This referendum will tell the whole world that this is an Islamic republic ruled by the clergy. Its undisputed leader will be Ayatollah Khomeini. While the Constitution provides for a nationally elected president, he can be dismissed by Khomeini. While the Constitution establishes an elected National Assembly, it would be watched over by a guardian council of Islamic lawyers appointed by Khomeini. The chief judge of Iran's highest court, the head of the armed forces, the commanders of the Navy, Air Force, and Army, all would be appointed by Khomeini. Equal rights are proclaimed for all. The Constitution says women who were degraded under the former despotic regime will no longer be regarded as mere objects of sexual pleasure. Freedom of the press is guaranteed, provided Islam is not flouted. This constitution prohibits foreign military bases on Iranian soil and pledges the country to defend the rights of all Muslims.
Many people don't like the way this constitution was drafted or what it says, but they are outnumbered and concede that if the Ayatollah approves of it, and he does, the great masses will too. The Constitution proclaims power to the people, but the power rests first with Khomeini. Bernard Shaw, ABC News, Tehran.
The Federal Court of Appeals here in Washington tonight reversed a lower court ruling that President Carter had exceeded his authority by terminating the defense treaty with Taiwan without congressional approval. The original suit was brought by Senator Barry Goldwater and other conservatives in the House and Senate. They argued that the Constitution requires that the Senate or the Congress give its consent whenever the United States makes or terminates a treaty. The Court of Appeals disagreed, and the president's position has been upheld. The president left for Camp David this afternoon. The White House says Mr. Carter will make no political trips outside Washington while Iran holds American hostages. The president will announce he's a candidate for re-election next Tuesday and will then attend a political dinner in Washington. But his previous plan to travel around the country for a series of fundraising dinners has been canceled.
Here's the answer for Christmas. 2 sizes of vice grip locking pliers, the Vice Grip gift set. You can do it with a vice grip. You can do it. Do it with a vice grip. You can do it. Do it with a vice grip. Nothing to it. Vice grip locking pliers. Do it with a vice grip. You can do it. Do it with a vice grip. It helps you through it. You can do most anything if you do it with a vice grip. The Vice Grip gift set, wherever fine tools are sold.
Good. Now I can go to bed.
Wait a minute. I want to give you your gift while we're alone. It's something just for you.
A washer and dryer.
Now, come on, will you be serious? Okay. Close your eyes. Merry Christmas.
Give her a diamond. It's forever.
In the world of Amway, this could be you.
You know, we never had the money to feel really independent until we discovered Amway. Started part-time.
We're earning extra income as Amway distributors, bringing others into it.
We run it. We're our own boss.
And being more independent is the best security.
When someone wants to tell you about Amway, listen and get the whole story.
With the world of Amway, you can do it too.
Think about it. Every time you mix a drink, 2/3 of what goes into your glass is mixer. That's the 2/3 that will make or break the taste. Maybe that's the reason more people mix with Canada Dry than any other brand. Canada Dry Club Soda has pinpoint carbonation for long-lasting bubbles. Canada Dry Tonic Water has a taste that's distinctively smooth. Think about it. 2/3 of your drink is mixer. So make your mixer Canada Dry.
The economy received another jolt today with word that the government's index of leading economic indicators fell in October to its lowest point in 2 years. The index is supposed to predict where the economy is going. Another economic prediction was made today by the forecasting firm of Chase Econometrics. Chase says a recession is already in effect, predicting inflation will slow to 9% by spring of next year, but unemployment will rise from 6 to 8%. Well, facing unemployment and chanting "We want jobs," hundreds of workers invaded U.S. Steel headquarters in Pittsburgh today. The workers protested the proposed shutdown of 16 of that company's plants in 7 states, which would result in 13,000 workers losing their jobs. Many of today's protesters in Pittsburgh were from Youngstown, Ohio, where 2 U.S. Steel plants are scheduled to close. Ron Miller has more on that situation.
5,000 Youngstown steelworkers will lose their jobs permanently because of mill shutdowns. Unemployment in the city could touch 12,000 people, 20% of the city's workforce. U.S. Steel is closing 2 facilities in Youngstown, which the company insists are obsolete and only marginally profitable. But those who work in the mills maintain that profits are possible with investment.
You invested here, and we want U.S. Steel to invest here, right here.
The closings in Youngstown threaten a way of life. Many here have the same jobs as their great-grandfathers. The steel mills in the Mahoning Valley have afforded women like Betty Yario a sense of certainty and continuity. Now it's apparently ending.
They've used us, they've benefited from us, and now they're finished with us. And the way that we feel now is that these steel companies feel that when they're done with us and our lives, we're scrap to them.
While the mill closings are causing anger and personal dislocation here, they are also hastening our nation's predicted dependence on foreign steel. It's expected that by the late 1980s, 50% of our steel will come from foreign producers. That has hurt the most in towns like Youngstown, which 2 years ago lost almost 5,000 other steel mill jobs.
I believe probably because of the ethnic background in Youngstown, an extremely hard-working stock, they will be able to bounce back from this adversity as they did from the last.
People look to the smokestacks for an indication of the economy, but because of the action by U.S. Steel in 16 cities, there'll be no smoke coming from the stack soon.
the indications are not good. Ron Miller, ABC News, Youngstown.
Dad and I are mechanics.
And we like cars that are easy to take care of. That's why we own Pintos. Right, gang?
No! I bought mine because it's pretty.
Has lots of room.
Fun to drive.
There are lots of reasons why we're a 9-Pinto family.
Join the Pinto family, the Ford Pinto. With 40 standard features, compare Pinto. It may be the best small car value in America.
I like my Pinto because it's red.
Yeah, that's what happens when you raise your kids to think for themselves.
Ta-da! We both made coconut cakes.
Even followed your recipe, Grandma.
Not completely. You didn't use Baker's coconut.
How'd you know?
Well, yours doesn't taste as fresh.
Tender, moist. Baker's does taste fresher.
Baker's is proved fresher tasting than any other national brand. Don't scrimp on coconut.
Ruth's cake still can't beat yours.
She's getting the right idea.
Baker's Angel Flake Coconut. Fresher taste makes the difference.
I have to look my best all the time. That's why Oster's new Soft Glow Makeup Mirror is such a lifesaver. It's got a light setting to match any occasion. Daylight, office, evening, or home. I can attach a hairdryer or a curling iron. Flip for a close-up view. Flip again and take in the whole effect. The Oster Soft Glow Makeup Mirror helps you look your best all the time.
Okay, Phyllis.
Great mirror ideas from the Osterizer Blender people.
Jim? Jan? What's your dream?
To sail the tropic seas.
To dance under a tropic moon.
Then use your clout. Master charge. Get away. Get around. Get together. You've got the clout.
When you carry Master Charge, you carry clout.
Get more out of life.
Tomorrow night in Oakton, Virginia, the Mormon Church puts one of its members, a Virginia housewife, on trial. The charge that may lead to her excommunication, supporting the Equal Rights Amendment, a violation of Mormon policy. Bill Zimmerman reports.
Rock solid, economically sound, and 4 million strong, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church, is beginning to detect a tremor begun by a Sterling Park, Virginia housewife, Sonia Johnson.
The ERA battle is political, legal, civil. In fact, it seems in perfect harmony with all the things I ever learned in church.
43, the mother of 4 and a 5th-generation Mormon, Sonia Johnson became outraged at her church's opposition to the Equal Rights Amendment, and she launched an attack. She enlisted the support of other Mormon women. She took to the airwaves, and in a direct assault, she hired a plane to carry her message over the temple itself in Salt Lake City. The church responded. In a letter from her bishop, Sonia Johnson was advised that she is to be placed on trial to formally consider the relationship between her church membership and her conduct during the past months. Sonia Johnson could be excommunicated. While the church says she is not being tried because she supports ERA, it is clear the hierarchy is incensed at the way she has supported it, as in this speech in Kalispell, Montana.
Write them and call them to the very headquarters of the church and say that you are outraged that the Mormons are working against equal civil rights for women. That if their missionaries ever come to your doors, you would consider letting them in.
Sonia Johnson wants to remain in the Mormon Church to, as Mormons believe, assure her eternal place in the celestial hierarchy. But she would like her church to stay out of politics, out of the ERA battle. Her own brother says she should be excommunicated.
We feel that she should have enough faith to follow the counsel of our living prophet of God. She and those that are dissenting with her are on dangerous ground.
I really do believe it would be an error to excommunicate me because I'm not guilty. I don't fear God. I mean, he knows my heart. He knows this. He knows pretty well what's going on both sides of this. And I don't think he thinks I'm doing anything wrong, and that really is all I have to worry about, because there's where the final judgment is.
Bill Zimmerman, ABC News, Sterling Park, Virginia.
Ah, Taster's Choice freeze-dried coffee, the image of ground roast, the crunch, the aroma, and the flavor. And now, with ground roast prices rising, It's good to know that a half a pound of Taster's Choice can make as many cups as 2 pounds of ground roast. So you could be saving with Taster's Choice, regular and decaffeinated, while still getting the look, smell, and taste of ground roast coffee.
Chevy's National Economy Drive is on.
Chevy's got the drive. Chevy's got it.
Featuring great values like Chevy Malibu, America's best-selling mid-size four-door sedan and best-selling wagon, both with gas mileage estimates better than many smaller cars.
Chevy's got the drive. Come and get it.
Get Chevy's free booklet on fuel-saving tips and come take a special test drive that lets you see how good driving skills can improve your gas mileage to help you go farther on less.
Chevy's National Economy Drive.
There were demonstrations at several American embassies today. The biggest was in Kuwait, where several thousand Muslims demanded the return of the deposed Shah. Kuwaiti troops used tear gas to keep them away from the embassy. In Bangkok, Thailand, several small bombs damaged a retaining wall outside the embassy. There were no injuries. Frank?
The most tragic attack on an American embassy, apart from Tehran, during all this turmoil in the Muslim world, was in Islamabad, Pakistan, where 2 Americans were killed. One of them, Marine Corporal Stephen Crowley, was buried today in the cemetery this nation has long reserved for its fallen heroes. Here's a report from Susan King.
This may not be a time of war, but the Marine Corps gave full military honors to Corporal Stephen Crowley of Port Jefferson, New York, a fellow Marine who died fighting. Corporal Crowley is the first member of the armed forces to die as a result of hostile action during President Carter's administration. On the arm of the president today, Stephen Crowley's mother, who came to bury her son at Arlington Cemetery. New York's 2 senators, Secretary of State Vance and Defense Secretary Harold Brown, attended the 20-year-old's funeral mass. An unexpected moving moment when the congregation stood and applauded Corporal Stephen Crowley, who New York's bishop said deserved a round, for he laid down his life for his fellow men. Mrs. Crowley shared with the congregation a letter she received which was read by her congressman.
Dear Mrs. Crowley, I have just finished reading Newsday about your son's death, and I wish to express my condolences, for though he was just a kid, he was more of a man than I could hope to be. God bless you, Mrs. Crowley. I'll say a rosary for you, your family, and for Steve.
Burying a young man is not easy for a mother. Burying a soldier is not easy for a president. But both heard the words of a Crowley neighbor who said, "We've lost a little piece of America, but maybe we found again the spirit of America." Stephen Crowley always dreamed of being a Marine. Today he received their most touching salute. Susan King, ABC News, Washington.
Thank you, Susan. ABC News will present another special report tonight on the crisis in Iran. Tonight's broadcast will be at 11:30, 10:30 Central Time. That's our report on World News Tonight. For ABC News, good night.
From ABC, this has been World News Tonight.
Tonight, sensational Sugar Ray Leonard goes for the WBC welterweight crown against undisputed